It's a Boston Bruins game day, and today we're asking, are the Bruins legit Stanley Cup contenders? Let's discuss on a brand new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked Beat. Today is Thursday, January 4th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. It is a Bruins game day. They're hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. Sidney Crosby, used to be a showdown with Patrice Bergeron, two of the great centers in the NHL. Bergeron now off being a hockey ambassador, helping welcome PWHL Boston to the scene last night in a loss to Minnesota, unfortunately. And Crosby still going strong here as his career continues. We'll talk about that game coming up later on in the show. First, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren. Let's talk with beginning with the NHL playoff hope tiers that was published this morning by Greg Wyshynski of ESPN. It's Thursday. It's a cup check day, although I think I might shuffle things around a bit, seeing as Locked On Power Rankings are released on Wednesdays, so we'll discuss those on Thursdays beginning next week. But for today, we're going to do a cup check, and right now, ESPN is ranking the Bruins as true Stanley Cup contenders. Let's read what Greg Wyshynski has to say here. Quote, Boston hasn't gotten enough credit this season as one of the NHL's surprise teams. I completely agree. After the shocking playoff exit and retirements of Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, along with other lineup defections over the summer, no one expected the Bruins to challenge for another President's Trophy. Again, exactly what I said the other day. And yet there are, as the calendar flips to 2024, that's exactly where they are, thanks to the league's best goaltending and special teams. He goes on, they did seem to feel those lineup losses earlier this season when their offense sputtered. The Bruins still aren't all that threatening at 5-on-5, ranking 18th in expected goals per 60. Boston can use an offensive infusion before the trade deadline and some additional help at center. I'll touch on that here in a moment. The challenge is that GM Don Sweeney went all in for last year's juggernaut. Boston doesn't own a draft pick until the 4th round this summer. End quote. So, yes, I agree that Boston could use an offensive infusion before the trade deadline. Another scorer in the top 6 would be ideal. I don't know about help at center. You have Coyle and Zacha, who have played exceedingly well down the middle. Morgan Geekie has stepped up in that position lately. Trent Frederick has been deployed there the last game. You have John Beecher, Matt Poitras coming back from the World Juniors. I think there's not star level talent down the middle, but there is depth there. I think a scoring winger might be more appropriate at this point. But again, we saw all the additions they made last year, and it didn't amount to a playoff win. Now, Here's what Greg Wyshynski writes. Their hopes get lower if, quote, their underlying numbers can't become a little more Bruins-like. Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman have helped Boston to 1.98 goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, thanks to their combined .920 team save percentage, which is best in the NHL. They've covered for a lot of what's happening in front of them, where the Bruins are under 50% in expected goals and shot attempts at 5-on-5. These are things that never happened in the Bergeron years. They can't continue to happen if Boston hopes to hoist the Stanley Cup 1 year after Bergeron was supposed to lift it. End quote. And yes, these numbers are a bit concerning. If you're giving up more shot attempts and the opposition is expected to score more goals, again, expected goals, that's not the score. You can be expected to score 5 goals based on the shots you put up, high danger chances, shot attempts, etc. But if your goaltending is exceptional, then those expected goals are stopped because your goalies are that good. And that's what's been happening for the Boston Bruins so far this season. But still, true contenders are more dominant possession-wise traditionally. They have the puck more than the opposition. They're firing more pucks on net than they're allowing, and they're generating more high-danger chances. But the fact is, Boston has still the best goaltending tandem in the NHL, and that counts for a lot if you use it properly. And again, last year against the Florida Panthers, we saw they ran with Ullmark perhaps, or gave him a bit too much runway. Should have gone to Jeremy Swayman sooner. By the time they did, not that you can pin Game 7 on Swayman, but it shouldn't have gotten to that point to begin with. So the key is using that tandem as a strength, even in the playoffs. I think we'll see if Jim Montgomery leans that way this year. But Boston, with a top-rated penalty kill, a very high-rated power play, top-rated goaltending tandem, these things count in the playoffs. It can all fall apart in the playoffs. Things can regress in the playoffs, as we saw. But at the moment, the Bruins are a pretty good team. And that's the key word there. They play well defensively as a team, and a lot of credit goes to Jim Montgomery. I haven't agreed with all of his lineup decisions or game management decisions, but he deserves a lot of credit. He also should be thanking his goaltending tandem. Don Sweeney also deserves a lot of credit for filling out the roster with some of those bargain guys we talked about yesterday who have helped them succeed lately. Now, where do the Bruins fit in terms of other teams? What other teams are right up there in terms of true contenders? We'll discuss that coming up here as the podcast continues. Sleeper's the place you want to be for all your daily fantasy sports needs. We're almost at the halfway point of the NHL season, and the Bruins, again, right up there in first place. I want to remind you that you can also win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, our number one choice for daily fantasy sports. And with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether top players will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and a lot more in any given game. To win 100 times your bet, you have to predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply, but that's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, Locked On has recently launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You can get all the latest news from every league from our local experts. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, so we've talked about how the Bruins are top team in terms of goaltending. They're one of the top teams in terms of special teams as well. Their penalty kill currently ranked second in the NHL. Their power play is ranked fourth. And those are all ingredients that help your team in the playoffs. But we all know the majority of the game is played 5-on-5. When it comes to shot attempt differential, the Bruins are at 48.5% at 5-on-5. In terms of expected goals, the Bruins are, where are we at here? 16th ranked at 49.84. So, not great. And if you're giving up more shot attempts, more scoring chances, high danger chances, the Bruins are 50.64. So they're limiting the opposition that way, just a touch. But they're not right up there with some of these true Stanley Cup contenders. And looking back at this ESPN article, the folks over there have Colorado, Dallas, Florida, the Rangers, and Vegas right up there as true Stanley Cup contenders. And when you look at expected goals for, a lot of these teams are up there. Dallas, the top 5 teams in terms of expected goals for at 5-on-5 so far this season. The Edmonton Oilers, who had a rough start but have come on strong lately. The Kings, the Hurricanes, the Stars, Panthers, the Devils, who have been sunk by goaltending issues this season, but the Avalanche right up there, Predators, Penguins, Golden Knights. Again, that doesn't tell the whole story. Expected goals doesn't tell the whole story because it doesn't translate always to goals in the back of the net. When it comes to scoring chances, the Bruins are 16th, and they have a rate of 50.74. So high danger chances, scoring chances, they are slightly ahead of the opposition at 5-on-5. And again, that goaltending has been a savior. They're second right now with a 93.43 save percentage, 5-on-5, just slightly behind the Winnipeg Jets. If you look at the standings, the Bruins, of course, first overall, still 722 point percentage, 52 points, and that has to count for something. And again, it's remarkable that they've been able to do this without Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, and with all these guys having left over the offseason. Now, there's no one number that you can point to that would suggest that one team is more of a Stanley Cup contender than another. You can look at points, point percentage, goal differential, shot attempt differential was seen as kind of the a marker of the better possession teams in all situations. The Bruins are 23rd in that regard in all situations in terms of expected goals. The Bruins rank 20th. So 49.11. But again, they have incredible team defense, a fantastic penalty kill, and that goaltending. But the goaltending will only carry them as far as the tandem kind of remains intact. Not a knock on Linus Ullmark, no disrespect intended, but the last 2 playoff runs haven't been especially friendly to him. And Jeremy Swayman's come in a pinch, but it was perhaps a little bit of too little, too late. Right now, they do have league-leading save percentage of 92% in all situations. And if they're going to succeed, if they're going to be a true playoff contender, that needs to carry over to the playoffs, like we saw with Tim Thomas in the past and Tuukka Rask in 2013 and 2019, despite what the haters may say. So are they true Stanley Cup contenders? I mean, they're first overall at the moment. You can't say no to that. But we all saw what happened last year, and we know that anything can happen in the playoffs. Again, ESPN, they have them as the number one Stanley Cup contender with a Stanley Cup win probability. Well, not necessarily the number one contender. Colorado's at 7.2%. Panthers are at 11.2%. Rangers 4.7%. If you think about that, the field is much more likely to take it. So even if you have a high Stanley Cup win probability, you're still one of 16 teams. And the higher probability is that another team will win. Anyways, still lots of hockey to be played here in 2024. Trade deadline could affect the landscape, and the Bruins also in action tonight. And we will preview tonight's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins here as the podcast continues. FanDuel is the best place for all your betting needs here in 2024. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, their new Explore tab, the Parlay Hub, and more. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get in on the action. If you use, make a $5 bet and you'll get $150 in bonus bets. And tonight, Boston's over-under with the Pittsburgh Penguins is set at 5.5. So you can bet on NHL and NBA over there as well. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. All right, Boston, Pittsburgh tonight. Always a fun clash between these two clubs. There's 13 games on the NHL schedule tonight. And this is the first of 3 meetings between these two teams this season. They'll play again in March and then another game in April. The Penguins coming into this one with a 7-2-1 record over their last 10. They've won 2 in a row, 4 of their last 5. And the Bruins 5-2-3 over their last 10. They have won 4 in a row here. Actually, the Penguins have won 3 of their past 5 games. Now, Tristan Jarry has been in net for most of the games for the Penguins this season, although Alex Nedeljkovic has come on pretty strong lately, so he might be in net tonight. They're led in scoring, not by Sidney Crosby, not by Evgeny Malkin, but by Jake Guentzel, who has 17 goals and 25 assists for 42 points. Crosby, Malkin right up there, 2-3 in scoring, and then there's a pretty big drop-off with Brian Rust with only 20 points, but in 23 games. And then former Bruin Riley Smith rounding out the top 5. He's got 20 points in 36 games. Chris Letang had a 6-point game the other night, so he leads them in scoring over their last 5 with 9 points, 8 assists. Jake Guentzel has 3 goals over that span. Boston led in scoring by David Pastrnak over their last 5. He's got 3 goals, 4 assists. Marchand with 6 assists. I don't believe Matt Poitras will be back in the lineup tonight. He is on his way back from the World Juniors. where Canada lost to Czechia in the quarterfinals. Probably a bit too soon for him to be back in the lineup. Might be back for Saturday's game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Steve Conroy of the Boston Herald reporting Derek Forbort finished skating before practice or before the morning skate. Could be his first time since he went on LTIR. So we'll see when he can get back in the lineup. Mason Lohrei didn't practice the other day after needing some dental work following the game the other night, the win over Columbus. So with Forbort perhaps ready, Lohrei could be back soon in the AHL, as could Georgi Merkulov with Matt Poitras soon returning. Always fun to watch the Bruins and Penguins play. I'm very excited to check out tonight's game. And you'll be sure to have a full recap on tomorrow's fresh episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we discuss your favorite team every single day. The Bruins, of course, on a 4-game win streak. In the previous win over the Columbus Blue Jackets, we had Linus Ullmark in net, so expect Jeremy Swayman to be back between the pipes tonight. The Bruins look to remain red hot here to begin 2024. Thanks so much for taking some time to listen today. Always appreciate the support. Please do hit me up in the comments on YouTube or on social media at Locked NHL Bruins or at Ian C. McLaren, and we can keep the conversation going there. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. Kill them with kindness today, and we'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins.